So what is this really big wooden scythe-looking flail that I'm swinging? Well, as you know from the video title, it's the original nunchaku, so to speak. The muge, the wooden horse bridle, is the leading candidate amongst most experts for the inspiration that led to the classic Okinawan nunchaku. And this is going to be a very hands-on video, so I'm not going to delve into the controversies surrounding the origin of the nunchaku. Again, this is the leading candidate. Now, the one I have on the left, borrowed from my sensei, by the way, seems to be an extra-large pair. This thing is a monster, but it's still representative of the type. So this is an improvised weapon, right? This is something built for some use other than fighting that then got used for self-defense. So it's not optimized for that purpose. I mean, look at this connection here. Nobody designed this to be swung around, comfortably and predictably, as you're going to see in my demonstrations. Nobody designed that tapering end there with the thought, well, what if you need to hold on to this during a fight? You can see right there how it could conceivably slip right out of my hand during a swing if I have enough sweat and whatever. Also, it's very angular. It is not designed to be comfortable. You'll see me wringing my hands in pain later on in this video. But you see you've got these two different depressions on either side of the swelling, and so you have to take advantage of those. And this is what its evolution as a fighting implement resulted in. You have a uniform shape, it fits in the hand nicely, it has the traditional octagonal cross-section, which as a reminder will cause nasty cuts in a fight, and that is not theory, that is a matter of documented record. And probably the most important innovation is this. The cord comes out of the center of the top of each stick. And then on top of that, notice this conical, volcano-like shape. So you're going to a lot of trouble to make sure you get even, omnidirectional, smooth swinging. And that is not the case with our horse bridle. As you can see, there's definitely an air of unpredictability. Of course, some people criticize the nunchaku for being unpredictable, but those are usually people who don't know how to use it. And then they prove that themselves by thinking you need a full suit of armor, helmet included, to swing a rounded wooden weapon that was never used by armor wearers. That's like someone telling you they have an expert opinion to deliver on swimming in the ocean while they're standing in an inflatable kiddie pool wearing SpongeBob floaties. In this video, we're going to learn about this really unique, interesting, and challenging weapon by swinging hard sans armor, as the actual historical users of this implement did. Now, notice something interesting on this next picture. The two blades, if you want to call them that, are not aligned. As you'll see when I strike objects, sometimes you're going to hit with the flat, sometimes you're going to hit with the edge. And at least with the tie method used on this example, it's not up to you. I'm swinging downward like with a sword if you notice my hands, but I would end up striking with the flat because that's just the way that thing rotated. Let's reset with what can a nunchaku do, what can it do well, and then let's see if the muge can do that. Surprise attack, as I've shown extensively in other videos, it's very good for that. It of course has its weaknesses, quite a few, like any weapon does, especially one that's meant to be collapsed and easily carried, but it's also very good for striking from pretty much any angle with full power and very little ramp up. It excels at being difficult for your opponent to visually track and therefore predict. It may be unparalleled for recovering from a missed swing, like that. Let's see that again. That's because it's much more efficient than a rigid stick. All of world history vis-a-vis farming proves that. Read in my book if you want more details, what can I tell you? But that's why it does that so well. That's why you can strike full power from south to north, as I always tell people, from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Try that with other weapons. It's really awkward and slow with a single stick, meaning a rigid stick. So that's that. What about the muge nunchaku? I'm worried about this thing slipping out of my hand because of that tapering end. I'm absolutely worried about hitting myself. As you should be with any flexible weapon, that's just price of admission, as I've said before. You have to learn to mitigate that. But these were not truly designed for this kind of a thing. And you saw how much bigger in all respects they are than my standard nunchaku. Look here how the striking stick is just flopping around, flipping and flopping as the object rotates around me. Crack yourself on the head with this thing, you will be waking up later. That upward strike that I talked about, terrible with this one, just way too slow. And try the left hand. You can see, obviously, this is not fighting speed. This would not get the job done. It has a ridiculous amount of mass compared to the chucks, so there is that, but no, the lack of speed is too much. And as you can see, yes, my hand is hurting. Can I twirl this far less predictable beast in, nunchaku show-off type fashion? Well, let's see. Not really, but at least I didn't break my nose or anything like that. Yeah, so the physical properties are markedly different. And again, I'm using a large pair. You'll see here that they come in various sizes. Here's Jesse Enkamp, a huge karate YouTuber, with a pair of muge that he brought from Okinawa itself. And you can see they're much smaller than the ones I'm playing with. So I'm definitely experimenting with how to fight when you have a large, heavy pair. Remember the towel flick? I've shown that in other videos. 0 power, but you can catch them by surprise quickly, face, groin, something like that. Doesn't work out so well with this one. What about the classic double strike, which some say is an advantage of the nunchaku over straight stick? I'm not so sure myself on that. That one depends definitely on the context. I mean, if you're hitting, I think the straight stick is going to be better. If you miss, then the nunchaku's better. And either way, I'm just, it looks like I'm swinging through molasses with the muge. Such a difference between these two items. I feel like I'm comparing a civilian flail to a war flail. That really is how hefty the horse bridle feels. Although, no, of course it would not have been used in war. Remember, this weapon here, it's the old Okinawan equivalent of a tire iron. I'm grimacing for a reason. Man, I got a heck of a workout making this video for you guys. How about some seriously fancy pants, non-fighting related twirling, right? And you guys know, if you watch my videos, I hate the showy, non-fighting application twirling with nunchaku. But they, unfortunately lend themselves to that. Once again, nope. What about a tactic I learned from YouTuber Nards, N-A-R-D-Z, grabbing it by the string and swinging because you're up close to your opponent? I tested that very lightly on my head, and with this big ol' horse bridle, trust me, it would work. Some people with real street experience with this weapon say you can twirl to distract and then deliver a strike. As you might know, that's not how I was trained to use this, but let's remember that Miyamoto Musashi, the most famous duelist in Japanese history, used that very tactic, specifically what I showed a moment ago, but with his sword, twirling the weapon above the head, to mess with his opponent, and he knows a little bit more about actual fighting than whoever you're watching on YouTube, myself included. As you can guess, non-starter with this heavy-ass thing. Full concealment to powerful strike, how about that? And once again, no surprise, definitely just does not have enough snap. Sure, you could thrust with these things the way you can with chucks, right? That makes sense, that would work. And of course you could smash with the butt end up close. And grappling, as you know, something I think that this weapon excels at. Yeah, that would work. This from someone who's been choked unconscious more than once. So I do have some experience to lean on when I put that around my neck and say, and squeeze and say, would this work? Now, other YouTubers like Shad from Shadiversity might say that they're useless for grappling, and he did, but he determined that by sitting in a chair and talking about it, not by ever training with them in a grappling context. I've had them used on me as a grappling tool in controlled training and real-time, non-compliant wrestling, and it hurt like hell, and I had bruises on all kinds of bones for days. Not saying I can't be wrong about this, but when I say that the horse bridle would be an effective grappling tool, I'm basing that on first-hand experiential learning and, you know me, actually reviewing the documented history of this weapon as a pain compliance tool. Now what about the two-handed swing, which I only learned about late in life because I was trained traditionally and you don't swing it that way, but YouTubers Nards, who I mentioned earlier, and the late, rest in peace, Pauly D, aka the Punch Professor, both showed me that technique as they responded to Shad and all the Nunchaku drama, and I have to say, it feels great. And with this big boy here, I think it's actually the perfect way to use this. Now this weapon is feeling fast and very powerful. Remember earlier how I talked about finding handholds and those two depressions? Well, if you go for a two-handed grip, they come in quite handy. I have to slow it down at times and catch my breath. This thing gives you one hell of a workout. Well, I guess it's not surprising that the way you would use this is really the way you would use any other large flail, two-handed. But I really wanted to compare it to what it turned into. And there's a really interesting what-if there. If the shape had stayed this way, if they tended to be bigger, then the fighting methods would have stayed markedly different from what the modern nunchakus is. And because it's fairly useless for fancy, showy twirly, like the truly just, demonstration kind, then it the weapon never would have gotten the bad reputation it's gotten in some quarters because of all these videos of people, knocking themselves out with it because they don't know what they're doing. And it's even devolved to the point where, by far, most martial arts schools, even martial arts schools, don't teach the modern nunchaku as a fighting implement at all, just as a training and conditioning thing. Well, as you know from my other videos, I will hit myself. I'm not gonna just sit here and wonder and prognosticate. Yeah, these tepid strikes hurt plenty. A full power strike with this thing would destroy somebody, in my opinion. Hey, guess what I found? A discarded tire with the word trash on it. But one man's trash is another man's treasure. First, let's warm up with the standard Nunchucks and dispel, once again, the myth that the standard Nunchaku is too uncontrollable to make it a good weapon. This tire is far denser and bouncier, if you will, than any part of the human body that you're going to hit in a fight. As you'll see later when I punch it, it's damn near like punching a brick wall. Let's say a brick wall with a rubber coating. Move around a little bit, keep striking. Now I'm going to change the orientation of the tire, so I'm completely changing the shape that I'm going up against, right? This way it's even easier. But to be clear, can you hit yourself with Nunchaku? Well, of course you can, if you're twirling around your body especially. But in terms of rebound, yeah. My response video to Shad, I struck a dense punching target as hard as I possibly could. I mean, 100% power, which you would never get to do in a fight. And it did rebound and smack me on my hand, and boo-hoo. It really wasn't bad at all. Do some snapping strikes here. Know what you're doing, employ basically sound body mechanics and moderate martial arts skill, and you're fine. This was day 2 of filming, as you can tell, and yeah, as long as I'm getting a workout, I broke out the straight stick too, my Niton bow. As I've said before, more of a sticking feel on the hits, more that kind of a power, whereas the chucks do more of a smack. Zero chance pretty much of hitting myself, not even a light wrapping over the knuckles or forearm, so that's good, that's definitely in its favor, as is the thrust. But the hand shock is a mother. Obviously one of the advantages flails provide. The reverberations just don't travel back up the haft into your arm. Let's try a two-handed strike with the straight stick. Now let's warm up with the horse bridle, jab, trick him with a fake jab, flick over the top, try to catch him on the hand, and now let's see how this crazy thing does against a very dense, very rebound enabling target. Yeah, I'm trading cautiously, no doubt about it, working my way up. I'm gonna be pretty wimpy with the left hand for now. Remember, this is day 2, but I was just learning the weapon in terms of actually swinging it, much less hitting something. And because of the time method, it is kind of unpredictable. Well, that and the shape. Remember, each stick is asymmetrical. Not loving these snapping strikes with the horse bridle. I feel like if I did it hard, I would definitely risk hitting myself, and these are so much bigger and heavier, that's a different story. They've got angles and knobs. Wouldn't want to smack myself on the arm with these. Rebounding off an aggressive strike, so yeah, no snapping motion with this one, I don't think. It just yanks the striking stick back at you, like directly at you. Now I'm thinking about doing the two-handed strike with the horse bridle to the tire, and I'm dithering because I'm wondering, what's that going to be like? Especially against this target, will what works with the standard nunchaku work with this? Where you kind of dissipate the rebound back out. Yep, not bad. And I noticed those strikes didn't seem like much, but if you notice the wobble on the tire, it's pretty good. Got a bit more, I would say, than with the straight stick. And with both weapons, it was about, 1/3 power. And feeling good enough to step up the tempo and the power a little bit. Now remember, just lightly smacking myself on the ribs with this thing, it felt like, I would say, like friendly bare-knuckle sparring. These whacks here are clearly not, full-on fight mode, not even close, and they're still too hard to where, yeah, you would not just afterwards say, oh, look, I've got some, red spots on my ribs, whatever. Experimenting with striking and retreating, which is also a good tactic. And yeah, I had to include a drop. I told you I didn't like that snapping strike. But no, by now, again, this thing is really heavy when in motion, so to speak. My hands hurt, the skin was rubbed raw on the pads of my fingers. I wrapped myself on the thumb joint with this big thing at some point, so... How about that double strike? Not bad, right? I remember I'd never swung, much less struck anything with these until a day ago in terms of recording time, right? This being day 2. Last few seconds, you can see some clearly concerning bounce back from this thing. Again, just getting started, and this is against this target. Against the human body, I really am not too concerned about bounce back. If you're swinging hard, flesh is going to absorb a lot of the impact, and bone is going to break. So this thing here, I know it's not huge, but it's heavy. This thing's really dense and heavy, like I keep saying, and I'm going to prove it by giving it a punch. And yeah, I'm wondering what this is going to feel like, because I'm going to hit pretty hard. I'm no tough guy, but I have hit things. I've done knuckle push-ups for many years, Makiwara type training, all that kind of thing, and that tire hurt a lot. I remember the shock going back up through my shoulder on this medicine ball. That was nothing compared to the tire. In fact, watch how dead-ass it stops me here in slow motion. I mean, I was joking about it being like a brick wall, but yeah, I pretty much stopped on a dime. I've never quite felt that before. But the point here is that's how much inertia this target actually has. So if it didn't look that impressive when either the horse bridle or even the straight stick wobbled it, well, that's why. You're not getting to drive through. No, not even with a rigid stick. If you're swinging it, you're hitting, not really driving through. That's why those lateral swings might trick you into thinking that either weapon doesn't hit as hard as it does. Speaking of hitting hard, I had a few blocks of wood in my car, pieces of a 2x4, so let's give it a go. Straight stick, nice and predictable results. How about the horse bridle? Not very impressive. Like I said, the striking stick, it's kind of unpredictable, even mid-swing. I did dent the 2x4, I mean it hit it, but it's really hard to hit it the way you want to. Well, that was better. Jump over the Pursuit of Happiness fence one more time. Did you notice that graffiti? And yeah, another significant dent, like it hurt a person really badly. But man, it's hard to get this, to get that home run swing just like you want, to hit with the sweet spot. I told you at the start of the video, it's a challenging weapon. One more try. I really want to maximize the transference of force this time. Much better. Here it is in slow-mo, and watch how it rockets away from the weapon. Now let's take a walk and find our 2 target blocks. First one we're going to come upon is the straight stick. One thing to notice, well, this thing went far, right? And the stick does hit hard, but more to the point, look at this line. Perfectly horizontal. I even laughed when I first picked it up and saw it. Like, hit exactly the way I wanted to. Of course, it helps if you know what you're doing, and you actually hit things hard with weapons instead of just talking about it. But the stick lends itself to that kind of a thing. The horse bridle, or any flexible weapon, is a different story, but especially this bridle, because of that asymmetrical shape that I talked about. So I knocked this significantly further back, but I don't even know which mark is the one that sent it flying this time, because I hit it a few times. I have no idea. Well, I better wrap it up. The Mugen Nunchaku, probably the original, a large specimen, makes for a unique beast. Even, somebody who knows weapons might look at these pictures and say, what in the world is that? It's a conservation of momentum type weapon. You can't just swing it one way and immediately snap it back the other like you can with its descendant, Nunchaku. And could you do worse if you needed to defend yourself on the farm? Yeah, you could do worse. This thing could get the job done, I believe. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching.